Lesson 8-2, Adding and Subtracting Rational Expressions. Objective, determine the LCM of polynomials, add and subtract rational expressions. Let's talk about the LCM of polynomials, but first let's go to numbers. 5, 6 plus 4 ninths. If we take 6 and we put it into its factors, it's 2 times 3, and 9 is 3 times 3. The LCM, remember, is the least common multiple, and it represents the greatest number of times that a factor appears. So the greatest number of times that 3 appears is twice. The greatest number of times that 2 appears is once. So the LCM is 18. Now if we take a look at polynomial factors, then when we factor this and factor this, we're going to see that the most number of times that the factor 2 showed up was once. The most number of times that the factor x minus 1 showed up was once. The most number of times the factor x minus 2 showed up was once. The most number of times that x plus 1 showed up was once as well. All right, let's go ahead and find the LCM of these three monomials. And I've circled the most number of times that it has showed up. So it showed up, 3 showed up at most once. 5 showed up at most once. 2, the most times it showed up was right over here, 2 to the 4th. Most times A showed up was 3 times. Most times 5 was this. The most 6 was this. And if we multiply all the numbers, we're going to get 240 and this. And that is the least common multiple of these monomials. What is the LCM of these two polynomials? We get them into factored form. And we can see the most number of times x showed up was once. The most times x plus 1 was once. But x minus 2, the greatest, was twice. And so this is the LCM. All right, let me go ahead and do another one. And we're looking for the LCM. I've already taken this and I've broken it down to its factors right here. So I'm going to first take a look at the number 2, and the most times it shows up is 2 to the 3rd. So I'll write 2 to the 3rd. And the most times 3 shows up is once. The most times 5 shows up is once. Now I'm going to look at A. Here's twice. So that's the most number of times it showed up. B is B to the 3rd. And C is C to the 4th. So this is what we know as the LCM. Over here with polynomials, I've broken it down into factors. The most number of times 2 has shown up is twice. The most number of times A has shown up is once, and the factor A minus 4 once, the most A plus 1 once, and the most A minus 4 is once. So this is the LCM of these two polynomials. Pause to try to do the problem, and here's the answer. Pause to do the problem, and here's the answer. Now, the reason we take LCM is to try to add and subtract rational expressions. So let's take a look at this elementary example with fractions, 2/3 plus 4/5. We need to get a common denominator. So the LCM will be 15 because that's the number both 3 and 5 go into, because it's made up of 3 times 5. So to get the LCM 15, I'm going to have to multiply the top and bottom by 5, the top and bottom by 3. And that's what they're doing right here, is they're showing us that they're multiplying top and bottom to get the least common multiple, which is 15. And so then the answer is going to be 22/15. Now when we subtract, it's the same idea. And the LCM is going to be 15, multiply top and bottom by 5, 3 and 3, and then this answer will be -2/15. We're going to do that same kind of thing with algebra. So here are my two denominators. I've broken them down, and my LCD is this. So I want all the denominators to look like this. And so in order for this first denominator to look like this, I'm going to have to multiply it by 7 to get the 42, multiply it by a squared to get my a squared, and since this only has a b, I got to multiply it by b to get that b squared. Now in this one, I'm almost there, except that I got the a squared and the b squared, but I need to multiply the 14 times 3 to create the 42. So whatever I do to the denominator, I must do the top. Now I have the common denominator. I multiply these. I get that. Multiply these, I get that. These are not common terms, so I have to leave them like this, and then I have my LCM. With polynomials, my LCM is 6 times x minus 5. And so I set them up in factors. And since this already has my LCM, so I just have to consider this other fraction. I'm going to times top and bottom by 2. And now I have my LCM, which is right here. And I'm going to remember to distribute, which is what I get here. And don't forget to distribute the negative sign here. So that's going to give you this. And when you simplify here, you can really factor out a -1 out of here. And then these will look alike, and you will have 1 and 1, and the answer is -1/6. All right, let's go ahead and do this problem from scratch. It looks like my LCM is right here. I factored, and I have the most number of times all of these have shown up. So here, all I really need to do is multiply by 5 to get my LCM. Here I have my 5 and my x plus 2, but I have to multiply by x minus 3. And so now I'm going to get my common denominator is 5, x minus 3, x plus 2. And here I'm going to have 5x minus 5. And remember, you're going to distribute a -4 here. So that's going to be minus 4x plus 12. And then this will be x, and then plus 7 over this. Now my LCM over here is this. Notice that all I need is a 3 to get my LCM. So I'm going to multiply by 3. And over here, it looks like what I need is x plus 5, numerator and denominator. And I am going to get my common denominator, which is 3, 4x plus 1, x plus 5. I'm going to have a 3x minus 24 plus 6x plus 30. And when I simplify, I'm going to have a 9x plus 6 all over 3 times 4x plus 1, x plus 5. Now I can factor out a 3 here. So this will be 3 times x plus 2. And so to have it truly simplified, I am going to have to reduce here. And this will be my answer right here. This will be my answer. That's the that fraction. Pause. And here's the answer. Pause. And here's the answer. Let's take a look at complex fractions with different least common denominators. Okay, so I've rewritten the problem, but instead of 1, I wrote 1 over 1. And I know that for this top fraction, my LCM is going to be AB. For the bottom, my LCM is going to be B. So I'm going to multiply B and B and A and A. Here I have to multiply B and B. All right, my numerator, I'm going to have AB. And I'm going to have B plus A. Over here, I'm going to have my common denominator is B, and then I'm going to have 1 minus B. Now remember that this division problem can be rewritten with this division symbol. And now I can multiply by the reciprocal. I can see some reducing here. That's about all I can do. And so this is B plus A all over A times 1 minus B. Your turn. And here's the answer.